You ready?
No, I know, it's terrible.
You ready? All right, I will, 6:30, I will call to order a regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen, January 6th, 2020. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Join us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Normally we would wait for a selectman who's not here, although it's come to our attention that Selectman Blessington will not be joining us this evening, so let's say on that. We had a request from Chief Moore to move up item A, the local emergency medical services plan that he's presented us with as he has to go back to work. So I would make a motion to move old business item A after present to speak.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So the next item is approval of minutes from our December 16th meeting. Excuse me, I will move to approve as submitted.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Anyone present to speak, we just ask that you identify yourself for the record and speak to be recognized. I saw your hand up first.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
Pete Tanaka, 125 Mason Road. I have a couple of items. The first one is I hope that we all keep Selectman Blessington in our thoughts and prayers. He's currently a patient in the ICU in Hartford Hospital. I saw him today and he wasn't able to speak to me, but I understand he should be recovering. Secondly,
thank you for sharing, because we had only heard some things that weren't really sure and didn't want to share on behalf, so thank you.
Secondly, I here because last meeting of the Board of Selectmen, all discussion on all topics were shut down by the public, and I'm saying that I would like to see that particular thing changed. Recently, we had a change in our laws here in town, and it was brought up that we had plenty of time to discuss them in public here at the Selectmen's meeting before the vote on the ordinance for the town use. If it continues that we no longer have the ability to speak to topics during the meetings, that would no longer be true. That would no longer be a public input. It would change these meetings, I think, from more of a conversation to more of a lecture, and I would hate to see that happen. Also on the agenda, under new business, section B, the executive session, according to Connecticut General Statutes 1-100, subsection 6, as I see it, unless you're pulling the superintendent from that committee, it does not meet any of the requirements for executive session in a public meeting. Thank you.
Anyone else present to speak? Go here, then I'll come back to this side.
I'm Donna Cook, 77 Common Road. I wrote a letter, but I'm getting over a really bad cold and do not want to hack on everybody. So I asked Liz Perry, who's...
I was going to read it at the end of present to speak, as you had asked to, so if you want someone else to read, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, Liz can read it.
Okay. Now?
Okay.
Dear Board of Selectmen, after reading the agenda for the Board of Selectmen for January 6, 2020, I'm respectfully requesting that item 7B, executive session, discussion appointment of Board of Education officers, and item 7C, appoint Board of Education officers, be removed from the agenda. On December 10, 2019, the Board of Education meeting ended without any officers being elected. One of the individuals who had been elected to the board had not been sworn in prior to the meeting. At the December 10th meeting, First Selectman Erica Wachinski said that she hoped that we would be able to settle this amongst ourselves and that any 3 members of the Board of Education could request a special meeting at which officers could be elected. After the December 10th meeting, Liz Perry was sworn in as a board member, as a member of the Board of Education. On December 12, 2019, I contacted the superintendent's office and requested that a special meeting be called for the purpose of electing officers of the Board of Education. Herb Errico, Elena Testa, and Liz Perry also requested that a special meeting be called. On December 16th, the special meeting agenda was filed with the town of Willington. The only purpose of the meeting was to elect Board of Education officers. A copy of the agenda is attached for your convenience. The members of the Board of Education were notified of this meeting via our Board of Education email account. The meeting was called in compliance with Connecticut Statute 1610-218 and the Willington Board of Education Policy 9321. On December 17, 2019, a reminder email was sent out to remind all board members that the meeting was being held as scheduled. I received no notice of cancellation. On December 17th, the special meeting was conducted at the time and location specified by the special meeting agenda. There was a quorum in addition to 4 members of the Board of Education. There were several members of the public in attendance. At that meeting, Herb Errico was elected unanimously as the chairman. Elena Testa was elected as the vice chairman, and Liz Perry was elected as the secretary. The minutes of the meeting were filed with the town of Willington on December 18th. A copy is attached for your convenience. I expect that the Board of Selectmen will recognize the duly elected officers of the Board of Education. I request that this letter be read into the Board of Selectmen minutes in its entirety, including attachment. Regards, Donna B. Chilton, review.
We, just for public record, that the attachments that you sent were a copy of the agenda that was filed and the minutes that were filed. And those will be included in the minutes to this meeting.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else? Okay. I saw your hand up there.
I'd like to reserve my right for the public speak when the agenda item comes up.
This would be the time to,
No,
for
it's
anyone
not. I
present
have
to
the right
speak.
to either speak now, or I have the right to speak, and that's a point of order. I have the right to speak when that topic comes up.
And your name, sir?
George Debsky, 12 Fenton Bluffs Drive.
You can address that when we get to that. I saw your hand up, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to reserve my time also when the agenda comes up.
And your
And
name?
my name is Mike Perry, 87 Belaz Road.
Anyone else present to speak? Yes. You want to identify yourself for the record?
Peter Latinchich, 97 Trask Road. I'm a member of the public, obviously. As I'm attending this meeting, I also attended the Board of Education special meeting on December 17th and was there to observe the new officers of the board being elected. I urge this board to recognize that event. I would like to reserve time also when that item comes up on the agenda.
Anyone else present to speak? Yes.
Lori Sunkelbon, 271 Turnpike Road. I would like to state that in my 8 years on the Board of Ed, I don't know how a special meeting could be called without a chairman. And I don't know that we can reserve our right to speak later, but if other people are doing so, I just don't think that's normally how things are done, but anyway.
Anyone else present to speak? Yes, sir.
Jim Bulett, 12 Laurel Drive. I just want to point out that officers are elected on the Board of Education for a term of 2 years on December 19th, 2017. So officers were in effect at the time all these meetings were held.
Yes. Amy.
Michelle Doucette Cunningham, 41 Lisker Road. For clarification's purposes, I'd like to set the record straight that the Board of Education attorney was contacted immediately after the Board of Education meeting to find out what the process was. It's never happened before that we hadn't elected a chair. And at the time of the meeting, we didn't know whether or not a special meeting could or could not be called. So the information provided by the town, the Board of Education attorney that has worked with us over a number of years, was very clear that without a chair, a special meeting could not be called. That information was shared with all Board of Education members, and therefore we considered any meeting to be held after that until the next regularly scheduled meeting for process to be handled in this case, because it would not happen before a regular, at our regular meeting, was that meeting was not held in accordance with state law. And in addition to that, if you remember, that particular day was a horrible ice storm. And the meeting was scheduled for the library. The library was closed. I checked the library website early in the morning. It was clear that the library was closed for the day. I never checked my email again the next day until the next day when I saw in my email that the meeting had been held in the library in an ice storm, which I think is kind of underhanded. And I was very disappointed with my colleagues that they should, stoop to a meeting that they knew many people were not going to be aware of nor come to try and move forward on something that we probably should have had a broader conversation with. And the fact that there were no members of the opposing party at that meeting is not because of the lack of interest in conversation and resolving this issue in a feasible manner.
Chiara Bambara for Union Clover Springs. In regards to, I know it's on the agenda on how to conduct meetings in the future. My suggestion would be to do it the same way that it's done in the Board of Education meeting, where the public has a right to speak before and after the meeting. So at the end of the meeting, people would have an opportunity to state, make their opinions clear, known, based on the conversation that's going on during the meeting. I personally don't think that a back and forth has a place in a public meeting. In a meeting like this, it's not like a town meeting, but I think giving another opportunity at the end would be something that it would be important.
Thank you. Anyone else present to speak?
Elaine Newcomb, Fermi Road. I would reserve the right to respond to some of the issues. I don't understand how you comment before you hear the premise.
Tracy Ederson, 151 Willington Hill Road. Not to be repetitive, I just want to say that I support everything that Michelle Cunningham said and followed directives from the law rather than, from, I think the law was where I should go with then attend, and the weather, than attending a meeting that was not submitted from the superintendent's office.
Anyone else present to speak? With that, we will move on to item A from old business, approving the local emergency medical services plan. So if you recall, this was submitted to us at our last meeting. And we were waiting for some opportunity to look it over, as well as some attachments. And Alex, you sent over some attachments. I had a question as to several that were mentioned throughout the document,
Yep, so the
but weren't
several
included.
Right, because those are ones that have already been submitted in the past. Stewart's EMD is already
Right.
at the state level, and you guys already have it on file. So because of the size of the file, it's not on here.
So will they be submitted
No. because-
together with this document?
No,
They'll
because
simply have them reference those that are on
referenced them
file?
on file.
And my questions, just Liza, so that you're aware to those, were specifically attachments.
The town county mutual aid ones?
Yes,
Yes,
and
because they
in the
have those.
towns.
Those have been submitted as well, but we have to.
The Talon County Emergency Operations Plan.
Yep.
And the Town of Willington Emergency Operations Plan, which I have a copy of
Yep.
in the Selectman's office as well. Okay, so then,
The other was just our PSAT map, which is just a map of the town.
and is that just this one that you submitted?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, that all it is just a blanket picture of the map of the town of Willington.
Okay,
Our mutual aid agreements for the departments that are around us that are signed off. That we may have to update, they were okay with it now, but because it's older, we may have to update that. They may want a new one for the.
can you tell me what the PSAR certificate is?
That's our,
attachment to.
every year, we have to get renew our certification with the state for the EMS. The fire
Fire
departments,
department does.
both fire departments, House and Willington Hill, have to renew our, and I don't have that, that's the one I don't have because it was as of January 1. So it comes, we should have that in the next
Okay.
couple of weeks.
But had we done this in December, originally,
because I
they would have
would've-
had the old one
I would
on
have had the old
file.
one, but it expires
So
January 1.
the attachments, you're really referencing for them to look back through documents they have, not for us to
Correct.
submit with this package?
Correct.
Okay, I was looking for the new
Yeah,
package.
the state, anything that either the state sends us or that they've already gotten, I did not attach because they've already gotten them.
And then I think I had a question on the management structure, so that's on page 5, item D. The two departments are a parliamentary organization with a clear supervisory and management structure. Each rank or position is noted with a corresponding role and responsibility relative to EMS services.
See attachment, but there's no attachment.
Right, so item 4, where it says fire chief,
Yep.
manage all department operations and personnel, set strategic and tactical objectives, reports to the first selectman, the board of selectmen.
Yes, because we
So
ultimately,
you're
because the town ultimately is responsible for all EMS. They
Right.
don't have a choice.
And we have, so my question with that is, should that reference the contract that we have with the fire department? Is there any validity in that being necessary?
I don't know, to be
Okay.
honest with you. I can
Would
refer
it be
to it.
necessary?
I don't think it's
Okay.
necessary because of the way the contracts are written.
Okay.
Either way, we still report back to
You
the board of
believe
selectmen.
just stating it
Yes,
is
because the
clarity.
fire chief reports back to the board of selectmen regarding EMS.
All right, most of my questions were involving attachments. Liza, did you have any?
I do.
All right, so I think it's important that we note and remember, especially after the long holiday, this is a new document, this is not a
This is
renewal
not
of
a
a
renewal,
document.
this is a new, that the state required.
Right.
Every town to submit a EMS plan, just saying originally what your plans are for the next 5 years. And what we're told is they're gonna ask for another one in 5 years, but we're not.
So my hope is that it's a plan that they actually look at,
It doesn't
read,
sound
and
like they
taken the
do.
time, and it doesn't go on a shelf with some of our others.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like they go through it initially, and then it just goes by the wayside.
Exists. Yeah, it's a shame because a lot of work goes into this as well as the other emergency operations plans that the town and Talon County Emergency provide. So I want to thank you for the work that you did on this. And I will make a motion to approve the local emergency medical services plan as presented.
Second.
Any
Once I get
discussion?
Once I get Chief Snyder to sign off on this as well.
Then you'll bring it in,
Yes, I'll bring in a hard copy that
assuming we're in favor.
yeah, sorry.
Any other discussion? Excuse me, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, and now you can get to work with time action. All right, correspondence, I had planned to read the correspondence from Donna Cook as requested. It's been read into the record. You can see another list of correspondence in your packet. I will also include, just for reference for the board, a correspondence that came through the town attorney's office from Tom Hennick at FOIA that did speak to whether or not an executive session to discuss the appointment of Board of Education officers could be held. And his response was based on what you've been described, and the question was, can you confirm individual officers also includes or applies to officers or agencies over which the town's Board of Selectmen has authority? The answer was, yes, they would be covered by an executive session. See the statute below. He quoted the statute that Mr. Tanaka read from that says discussion concerning the appointment, employment, performance, evaluation, health, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. And public officers can be employees or appointed board members. And this item was put on the agenda only in the event we were to discuss people that were to be appointed. It may or may not have been used. All right, status report. I will mention that all of the core samples from the pump house, the senior center, and the library have been taken. And I have been informed that they are being sent out or have been sent out for testing, and so we look forward to the results and the report from that, and I will keep you informed when we know more. We had, if you recall, we had an opening for an assistant land use agent. We believe that we have a candidate who we've made an offer to. We're anticipating that candidate come in tomorrow with a signed agreement, and if so, we would look forward to the candidate beginning next Monday. So positive, we'll be moving a forward direction in the land use department again. Public Works. So since we last met, we've had holidays, but that didn't seem to slow down snow and ice and such. So at Public Works, they worked on cleaning out the garage. They dug out waterways around town, cleaned off basin tops around town, fixed a couple of road signs and stop signs that were knocked over, patched holes around town, cleaned and started inventory on the parts room, fixed propane heaters at the garage. That was done by a contractor. And they're working on many repairs needed on our fleet of trucks. We currently have a truck down for service. Troy hopes it will be back from repair tomorrow, if not tomorrow, Wednesday. So let's hope that any snow that comes, as you recall, we do not have a spare truck. And we had a truck go down today that plows the lots. And so we're working on repairs for that as well. So that is an ongoing need in Public Works. Item A under a new business. So we have, I'm going to start with the motion and then move forward to something else. I'll move to appoint Kate Blackburn as a member at large, number 2 of the Youth Services Advisory Board, effective January 6, 2020, expiring January 5th, 2021.
Second.
Discussion. Jenny Arpin, who is the Director of Human Services that oversees the Youth Services Advisory Board, is ill and could not be with us tonight, and asked that I read her statement into the record. I'm very grateful for Kate to be joining the Youth Services Advisory Board as a member at large, and I look forward to her ideas and perspectives. Our next meeting will be January 27th at 6:30. Also, she mentioned that the current vacancies per the DCF grant are police officer and local service area provider, and she's actively pursuing filling those roles. So Kate, Kate joined us tonight.
Hello.
Is there anything you wanted to share?
I live on 2 Moose Meadow, and I'm just really happy and excited to be here. And I look forward to working hopefully with all of you. And definitely Jenny.
Thank you for stepping up to fill that.
It's my absolute pleasure.
Needed vacancy. We look forward to you working with us.
Me too.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, item B, executive session. I do not suggest we enter into executive session for this matter.
Agree.
Item C, appointments of Board of Education officers. This certainly is it seems to be a rather complex issue. Because Selectman Blessington cannot be with us, I feel that it's in our best interest to table this item until there could be conversation of the full board, and that there'd be at least a conversation from all parties involved. I don't think we benefit from the sort of partisan politics that is happening in Wellington. I think there's a better way for us to move forward, and seeing where we're at now, I think it's in the best interest of both the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen at this point. So I'll make a motion to table item C, appoint Board of Education officers.
Second.
Point of order,
Yes.
would you be taking the comments that we reserved for President to speak to this item, or do you want to table that too?
We're not making a decision on this item right now, and I think...
We're not entering into discussion on it. If you would like to speak to it, I would be happy to hear it, but there would just be you speaking about that.
It's really up to you, whatever you want to do, because if you want to postpone it, and then we can do the comments when it's being discussed on the 20th, that's probably the better way to go.
I think that's the most efficient use of everybody's time.
I agree.
But if someone felt strong about wanting to speak tonight, I would not say no. Yes, sir.
I would just like to make a recommendation that Well, let's start out with the
Just identify yourself again. I
Mike
apologize.
Perry, 87 Belaz Road.
Thank you.
And we just had an election back in November. The election was for Board of Education, for zoning and business, for selectmen, various other committees. The people of this town voted these people into these committees. And they voted on them because they relied on them, where they trusted them to represent the people of the community of Willington on their behalf. So if we elected committees, then the committees ought to be the ones that do the committee's work, unless they have something that's not right. Now, I'm kind of naive to the way things are done around here in Willington, out of country, well, from out of state previously, but I've been here for 4 years. But anyway, what I'm suggesting is that this not be tabled, but it be sent to the Board of Education, and let the Board of Education work out their own problems. If they can't work it out, then it comes back to this committee.
Thank you. Okay. The next item was a discussion about public content at Selectmen. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not see your hand.
Yes, I just want to express my gratitude to the board for tabling this item until there's a time for a complete discussion. I would add to that I hope the full board does not elect to go into executive session given the level of public interest in this issue. And the notion that executive session applies to officers and appointments is really for personnel matters historically, based on my attendance of meetings over the last 30 years in town, and not intended for this purpose. Can you do that? Clearly. I'm glad to see you want to have an open discussion. I would like to think it would not be an executive session unless there was a genuine personnel issue that the executive session rules address. Thank you.
Okay. So moving on to item D, discussion. It was addressed at our last meeting. I've stated it. I stated the fact that we are a meeting in public, not a public meeting. So our meeting tends to have lots of back and forth conversation between the selectmen and the public. Oftentimes, it can distract from the work of the board. We welcome hearing from our residents. That's what we're here for. We were elected by residents to do work on behalf of the town. There is a time for present to speak. We are willing to discuss another way to move forward. We've heard suggestions here. I think we probably each have our own suggestions. But seeing again, again, that this is a topic that I believe should be discussed by the full board, I'm going to make a motion to table item D until we have a full board of selectmen to discuss the topic. It came up at the very end of our last selectmen's meeting. We have had no discussions on it. Therefore, no one has had input. And I think it's important that without representation from the remaining selectmen, that we table this item.
I would like to enter in though for everybody's
I
consideration.
need a motion.
Second discussion,
Discussion.
yes.
Sorry.
To enter into the conversation that for those who are concerned about the opportunity for public comment, at no point has anybody expressed interest to shut that down. What we need to do is make it more manageable. There have been many meetings, especially in the last couple of months, where public comment has turned into devolving conversations that make it very difficult for the Board of Selectmen to conduct business. It makes meetings take hours and hours and hours, and it does not suit anybody's benefit and anybody's purpose. And we've also had times where, I'll speak for myself, I've had to fight for floor space in Board of Selectmen meetings from from residents who are in attendance, which I think anybody would agree that you're right, sir. You just mentioned that we were here, we are elected to represent your interests, and that's what we try to do, and that's what I try to do, and I take that job very seriously. And when it comes to a point where I don't have the floor to speak as your representative, we need to do something differently. And that's the reason why we're having this conversation. things have gotten political and things have gotten contentious, and we need to address that head on, and we need to put in place something that allows us to still do our jobs while also offering the opportunity for conversation. And again, Eric and I discussed this earlier, we feel it best to have that conversation when we have John at the table with us, because his perspective is important on this, obviously. But this isn't coming from a desire to shut anybody down. It's coming because we need to do business better. And several meetings in a row have not been productive, and they've caused more harm than good, I feel, for the public good. So.
Can I suggest one thing?
Excuse me.
Maybe you should put a limit on present to speak, so let's say 2 or 3 minutes per person, have a timer, and then once that person speaks for 2 or 3 minutes, so that you have an opportunity for everybody to speak and not prolong the discussion, so they can be concise, and you can do your work, but you can also hear from the townspeople as to what their feelings are, so the discussion doesn't prolong, but there's still a discussion.
And that is something that we mentioned last meeting as putting on the table, and why we want to have this conversation more intentionally, with opportunity for all of us to contribute and come to an agreement of how we're going to do this in a way that's going to be fair and productive and efficient.
And I hear what you're saying, and I take that into consideration. There are, the Board of Selectmen currently is really the only public meeting, meeting that's held in public that has this ongoing back and forth. And I don't disagree that sometimes there is a benefit, but it's easy for it to change. If you attend a Board of Finance, the conversation from the public is directed at someone who is speaking to, who has direct input in the item on the agenda. The Board of Education, I would agree, would be the same way. Planning and zoning, there is a specific time for people to speak. And so we'll discuss how that might look and talk about it. And as a board, we may not agree to a change. We may agree to leave it the way that it is, but it's important for us to have a discussion. But I made the motion to table because I think it's important the full board have that discussion. Yes.
Elaine Newcomb, as I see, the problem I see is that there's a Board of Selectmen who has offered opinion on what, or their opinion, without hearing the opinion of the people who elected them. So it's sort of backwards as far as I'm concerned. Particularly, there are plenty of issues, and I served many years on the Board of Education on different boards of education here in the regional years ago. Had a lot of experience with hearing from the public. And you want to hear from the public before you make a decision, particularly a significant decision, particularly an expensive decision. And that has, to my knowledge, that has been lacking. And we now have a difficult town because we don't really have any common means of open discussion. We used to be covered by newspapers. Things used to be out there. We know what people are doing. Everybody doesn't rush home from their day and log on to the town website to see, well, what's going on in town. It's like too little too late. You need to hear from the townspeople before a decision is made, before there's a commitment to a whole lot of taxpayer impact issues that the town has not had had the opportunity to offer an opinion. And that's how I see the problem. And you referenced the fact that you were elected to represent us. I think that's the problem. I think there are a lot of people who don't feel represented. Thank you.
And you'll be happy to know I see a reporter from the Chronicle here in the room.
Pardon me?
This meeting will be covered by the reporter from the Chronicle.
Well, very good.
Diligently
Very good. I come from the
writing,
days of Henry Frederick. I don't know if you remember Henry. We were covered by the Chronicle, and we were covered by the Current. And as a board member, I got phone calls all the time. And all kinds of things were out there as topics of discussion. And then we heard from Herb Arrico. There you are, my man. we were soldiers together. So, and certainly it was when we were regionalizing. You think that wasn't an important topic?
No, I think they are all important topics.
Well,
it's just a matter of how the conversation.
They impact the townspeople,
Absolutely.
whether in their personal lives or in their personal pocketbooks. And that needs to be considered before decisions are made, before commitments to spending money that the townspeople may not feel is worthy to spend.
Here, then.
Yeah, I just have one
Here,
comment.
sorry,
Oh, I'm
Karen.
sorry, go ahead.
Lori Semperblom. Again, I will reiterate what Erica said. This is a meeting held in public. It is not a public meeting. And there's a difference between the two. All of our commissions and committees are meetings held in public. We have elected people to represent us, to have discussions. They have present to speak so that we can be heard as citizens. But if there's too much conversation and back and forth, you can't get to the business that you need to get to. So I think it's hard sometimes for people to understand that it's not just an open forum where everybody should be talking all the time. It's, you are having a meeting, we're allowed to be here, we're allowed to witness it, there's a time for us to speak out, but it's really a meeting of our elected representatives.
Yes, and I just wanted to, Kiara Bambara, 49 Clover Springs. What you said about spending money or regionalizing, those are all issues that are discussed in a town meeting, right? That will be a town meeting,
Absolutely.
not,
And potentially referendum.
right, a potential
Yeah,
referendum, it's not a board of selectmen meeting. They don't make decisions
No,
about.
I'm talking about when we regionalize with Region 19.
Right,
Okay.
but on any such decision, if it happened today, they don't just get to decide, the three of them. The town gets to decide during the town meeting. That's the time where we have the back and forth, which is different than this kind of meeting, so.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Matthew Clark, 42 Burt Latham Road. I would just ask that all the boards and groups within town stick to one process. I've been to Board of Education meetings where it's gone wild, as long as the majority's in charge, but as soon as it's not, they don't like it, they shut people down. So stick to one way of going about things.
I couldn't agree with you more. After spending 8 years on the Board of Education, it was very different than the Board of Selectmen, and I recognize this is a very different animal to start with. So the motion on the table was to table the discussion, and so seeing no further discussion by the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I hope that all of you who had input on that, when it's on the agenda again, when we're all back at the table, will come back and be part of the conversation. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Mike Perry, 87 Belaws Road. I wouldn't have never known about this meeting tonight if it hadn't been for word of mouth. Like I said, I've been here for 4 years, but nobody's ever told me about a town website or anything like that. I don't get any invitations or anything to come to meetings or anything. Look at the turnout we have here today, and I appreciate everybody that turned out, but this is not a majority. And then we also heard that this is a public, a meeting in public?
Correct.
Well, it looks to me like we need a public meeting so that everybody can speak out. And that way, selectmen who make their choices or do the things that need to be done, they hear from the majority and they know what the majority in the township wants, not from the minority or from personal agendas or so on and so forth.
Reaching people is always our
We need a
biggest
better
challenge.
way to reach out to the community, to let everybody know in the community when these meetings are being held.
So I'm going to say, before you leave, stop and we'll let you know how you can find out at least about public meetings. And we'll make sure you know how to do
That's good for me,
that.
but what about everybody else out
I
there that
agree
didn't
with you.
show up?
And so
Can
we
I just
get
make one short comment? I tell you, the WIllington Public Library had a fair, and I can tell you I saw a sign almost in every corner, and I knew exactly when I had it. They had like two or 3 weeks before. It was absolutely great. For these meetings, if you don't check on the website, don't talk to people, nobody finds out. And I think that's part of the problem. People are not, there is apathy from voters, but part of the problem is from the elected people in this town and this governing body. There has to be a reach out process. I filed a petition today, and I found out that what you do is you put it in the paper, put it on your website. Those that have signed up for an email get an email, and then it's posted here. I can tell you that 80% of the people in this town, if not more, doesn't reach them. There has to be some other way to reach out to people to get them involved more, if that's what the board wants. Thank you.
So I'll quickly speak to this board is always looking for a way to reach the majority of people, and it gets increasingly difficult as there was a day where the newspaper is where people found their information, everybody, and everybody doesn't use the same source to find their information, so it does become increasingly challenging, but it won't stop us from trying to get people in the room to participate in the conversation.
Thank you.
I guess one last comment before we move on to.
Carl Pearson, 55 Fermier Road.
Yeah.
As far as communicating to the people who don't log on and who are busy traveling back and forth to work and whatever, I know there would be some money involved in setting it up, but why not have a programmable billboard somewhere in a very high traffic area in town that would announce schedule and meetings? They set them up for traffic in and out of Hartford to notify of an accident or something. I don't think we need anything that elaborate, but something along that line.
Certainly something we could take into consideration. All right, so the next item is E, tax refunds. All right, so bear with me. I move to refund Quen Wang $60.39 on a certificate of correction.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I make a motion to refund Margaret Williams $13.85 on a certificate of correction.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. I make a motion to refund United Bank an overpayment of $1,885.74.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion to refund Core Logic an overpayment of $2,770.84.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And last, I move to refund JP Morgan Chase Bank a certificate of correction for $300.60.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we already did item A. Item B, we spoke at the last meeting how before we could move forward, there would be a need for a town meeting with items. With the holiday, there has been no movement in that, and again, even if we had something ready for this meeting, I would encourage us to wait for the full board to have that discussion. So this item will remain on old business until we take next steps. Good and welfare. I'll reminder, there's a town meeting tomorrow, January 7th at 7 p.m. The town meeting is, this one's different, so it's going to be here. Robin, the notice doesn't say, upstairs in the common room? At 7 p.m. here, and it's to see if the townspeople, on the recommendation of the Board of Finance, will appropriate $77,000 from the Capital Reserve Fund for a Hall School boiler, emergency boiler replacement at Hall School. So that's 7 p.m. upstairs tomorrow. Typically our town meetings are in the old town hall. This is different.
Because the town hall is closed.
It's closed for the winter. And CIP is meeting, our first meeting on Wednesday night, down here. We still have 2 openings for members. They are 3-year terms. So again, if anyone is interested in serving on CIP, contact the Selectmen's office.
What is that exactly?
CIP is the Capital Improvement Program Committee. And they work on setting a 5-year plan.
Is there stuff on the website about?
Yes, in the plan.
Like their documents, what they do, I mean, how would anybody know?
Yes,
if
does it have its
do what they would
own
be
or is it
interested
under
in
the
this?
Selectmen's? I'd have to look.
We were going to do its own page, I don't know.
It may be under the finance department. The plan itself is part of the budget referendum. that happens in the springtime, so every year it's part of one of the things you're going to pull.
Is it under the Board of Finance or is it
The
separate from the
plan,
Board of
the
Finance?
current plan is under the Board of Finance page,
The plan, the CIP.
the CIP plan.
But
And that
the
was last
CIP
year's.
is different from the Board of Finance.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct. We received notice from Joe Philippi. Joe runs the car show that happens on the green every October. And he shared with us a note of thanks. They raised $1,569 for MCLEF, which is the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation, at this year's car show. And so I wanted to thank all those residents and other members of the public that attend and their loyal support. That because of that, over the past 7 years, $7,900 in total has been donated to the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation. So kudos to Joe and his group who put that on, and to everyone who attends. And I will, since it was shared with us, that Selectman Blessington is ill and in the hospital, I certainly will ask you all to keep him and his family in your thoughts, and we hope to see him back healthy soon. And with that, I will move to adjourn at 7:16.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.